Hi, this is Mr. Sakya. In this video, I'm going to talk about the 7 steps of management processes. We are going to explore the job of a manager and his or her job responsibilities. The market dynamics of the modern F&B business, driven in part by rapid emerging technology, are changing so quickly that any F&B business that fail to keep pace will quickly be made obsolete. So let's explore how to be an effective manager. So we are going the lesson 10.1, chapter 10, fundamentals of management. So what are the fundamentals of management? We're going to explore on that. By the end of this video, so we're going to learn about management. So we're going to define management and management resources. Then we're going to examine the importance of management processes. A manager needs to be good, if not the best, at every operational aspects. Then you'll feel you are being a right manager. So this is chapter 3, food and beverage management. So the two questions which we're going to explore: what is management and what does a manager do? So before I start, let me tell you a story. When I was doing my hotel management diploma in Calcutta, so I asked my professor, what is management? Then he gave me a smile and said, management is what manager does. So I was surprised. What does he mean by that? So later in my life, when I became a manager, then I realized that whatever I was doing as a manager is actually the management, right? So let's see what as a manager you'll be doing. So managing involves using what you have, we call it resources, to do what you want to do. That means attaining the organizational objectives. So all the managers are given certain objectives. There are long-term goals and short-term goals, and based upon those goals, we have to have certain type of objectives, and managers need to meet those objectives. So what are some of the resources available to a F&B manager then, right? So we can say that in brief, as the resources, there are 7 resources you have. First, the people, that means your staff, right, which is very important part. We are in the hospitality business, it's a people business. So how you give the service, the tangible, intangibles, both are involved in this business, right? So if you have the right staff, then you can give the good service and you can have a good experience. You can give it to the customer. Second is the money or the budget you have got allocated for your operation of your department, right? That is also very important resources to carry on your operations. Third, time. So we also call time is money, because the time what you are devoting to do the operations, your staff putting the effort, and the time, money, energy you are putting it, right? The fourth, we call it, that's why the energy, which is very important. So how you are making them motivate and make sure that they are giving the full 100% energy, right? Making them feel right, and then giving the right service to their customers. Fifth, your product, which is both tangible and intangible. So if you call about the tangible products, you have got the food, the menu, the drinks, right? Intangibles, you have got all the services which you'll be giving it, right? And another important part which plays a big role is your equipments and the space. So the hotels or the restaurants, you have spent a lot of money, right? Capital expenditures are being put in the business to buy the equipments, latest equipments, and the space, the rent you are putting in. These are also your resources which you're going to use it. And at the end, then 7th, we have a procedures, or we also call it SOP, standard operation procedures, which is the company's policies and procedures how to do the business. This is also your resources which you're going to use it to make sure that the business works. By the end of the day, business is done to make some kind of profit or to make people happy, right? The customers get more customers, running, right? So all these resources are in limited supplies. So you have to be very wise to use it, how you're going to use it, and make the optimal use of those resources. So that's why we say that manager's job is to make sure that you take the right decisions on how best to use these limited available resources, right? So if you see the management processes, there are 7 steps which are very vital as a manager you'll be doing in all the stages of as a role of the manager. So the first comes planning, second organizing, third coordinating, fourth staffing, fifth directing, sixth controlling, and seventh evaluating. So these are very vital role of the managers you'll be doing throughout your in the manager's role. So as I said that all the managers they have their long-term goals and the short-term goals, and these goals we put some kind of objectives, right? So that we can fulfill and we can see even as a KPI, key performance indicators of managers. So you have to make sure that these objectives are met by creating a plan. Then as we plan it, right, we need to evaluate the result, whether we are in the right direction or not. So where am I now and where I need to go? Am I reaching that directions or not? Or do I need to change the course, right? So that's why you have to do some kind of adjust your plan or the objectives as the plans run, right? That's also quite important part. So let's look in details of each one. So when you say planning, one of the most important thing, right? You are creating your goals and objectives and determining your strategies. So that's the first stage. So sometimes we also say that if you are not planning, that means you are planning to be unsuccessful, right? So that's why planning is very important. So there is a goal and you know that how you're going to reach that goal. And that's why we have to have some kind of objectives. And to do that, you have to do the proper planning and what kind of strategies you're going to use it. Then comes second is organizing, right? So you have to establish the flow of authorities, who is in charge of which tasks. So that's why you need to have a proper organizational chart and you need to have a job descriptions and specifications very clear, and make sure that your staff understand or understood the entire job descriptions and specifications and take the responsibilities as required. So to do that, then again you need to have some kind of coordination. So you have to coordinate with the different departments. For that you need to have a communication skills. So that's why communications is so important, vitals to understand the flow of orders or the flow of operations from top management to the lower management, lower level, from lower level to the higher management. There should be a two-way communications thoroughly in the organization. So to run well, then it's not only your responsibility, so you have to do some kind of delegating your staff, you're empowering your staff, even the entry level staff you need to empower, give them the power to make the decision on their own and make sure that the job is done. So to do that, all these things you need a staff. So that's why staffing is the third criteria, right, or the process. So always we say that always recruit the right staff, because if you have the right staff, then the fire in their belly will automatically run your operation smooth, because they have so desire or the determinations to make it successful, right? You don't need to do the micromanaging. That means you don't need to tell what to do. The fire in their belly itself will help to run the operations smooth, and they will be keep on progress in their operations. So to do that, you have to give, of course, the training, right? Then after that, the fourth is directing. So you need to give some directions to your staff, right? So to do that, you have to make sure that there's a proper schedule, duty rosters, who's going to work on which time, weekly wise, the holidays schedule should be properly done so that we know the the people working in that particular shift, right? And the disciplining is quite vital. And to do that also we need to have to make sure that you are constantly training, right? And sometimes we need to motivate also our staff to make them get the spirits up. So the motivation is, we just say that it will get more some kind of energy, but more important is discipline that will be constant. So that is the key for making sure that the consistency of the quality happens throughout the operations. So motivations and disciplines works hand in hand. So they have to some inspirations as a leader, so inspire them to work hard, get the results, and get them job done. Then comes the controlling, right? As you have given the directions, but still there may be some ups and downs. So you have to make sure that you have to develop and implementing the control system. So how we can do that is basically the each person is given some kind of KPI, key performance indicator, and we know that whether they are meeting those objectives or not. So this key performance indicator or the control systems will indicate that where the problems happen, right? And we can control them before any kind of incidents or the accidents happen. So the controlling tools are also quite important. In F&B, we talk about the F&B cost controller. That's one of the job of the controller is to make sure that they control their cost, right? So from those point of view also, there are some KPIs, performance indicators, where we can set to control even before something goes wrong. They can indicate and we can correct them on timely basis. So what are the steps in controlling process then, right? So first you have to have some kind of establish the standard, right? Sometimes we say that it's quite important to know where are you and how do you measure it, right? So what is the standard of the company? So what exactly we need to achieve? It should be very clear. So that's why it all comes from the vision and the mission statements, right? The standards which you establish and the operations, right? SOPs you established. So then comes measuring your actual operating results. You have to measure it, right? Sometimes in the business we say that things which you can't measure, you can't control, right? It is you can't make a standard. So try to make it everything some kind of measurement scales, so the operation scales, so that you know that where do you stand, right? So the third one, that's why we say that always you compare with the actual result with the standards. So these standards are like a benchmark or the level, right, where we know that whether we are higher than the benchmark or we are lower. So what are the things we need to do then? So that comes on the fourth, take the corrective actions. So why aren't we meeting the standards or the benchmark, or can we go higher than the benchmark, right? So that's why we have to, on the fifth, we have to evaluate the corrective actions. So always we have to do the reflections on how we are doing it, right? So evaluate the corrective actions and what else we can do to reach the goal. So that is the basic steps in controlling process. So evaluating, that's why we say that the seventh stage, we review the progress towards operational goals and assess the effectiveness of all the training what we are giving to our staff, right? So Richard Branson, once he said that train your staff so well that he can do any job at any other companies and make them feel or give them some kind of atmosphere in the company that they don't want to leave at all. So you can understand what the Richard Branson means by that, right? So you have to always do the reflections, right? Reflections of your work. So that to do that, we have to always evaluate: are we in the right track or not, right? So you have to assist, and all the trainings what we are giving it, is it in the right directions? Are we meeting the goals and the budgets, and are we making profit, right? That's another important bottom line. So the management skills pyramid, if you see it at the bottom, that not need to be done by a managers, that is get it done, is you have to do the plan and organize, and you give a direction to your team, and you have a control over your team. For in the development of the staff levels, second higher state, we have to motivate, right? So even I say that not only the motivate, you have to have some kind of discipline so that it can go. Motivation works in the certain time so that they get energy or they are inspired. But if you have a behavior, or if you have got the behavioral change, or make sure that the training is such a core product of your training that they will keep on getting in the behavior in DNA that happens, right? So training and coaching is very important, that's why. And then involve them in each every activities, right? So make a decision process make them involved, planning, right? All these things you make them involved so that they also feel empowered. For the third stage, the improvement self, make sure you have a time management. It's very crucial because as managers, you are always say you are busy, right? But you have to have some time to reflect on how you are doing it and what are the things you prioritize that is most important for the further growth of your career. So the self-management is very important part, and then comes the leadership on the top to be successful. If you can lead it, right? As managers, not only leading from the back, always lead from the front, right? So that everyone can admire you, right? Walk the talk, we saw say that. So if you are doing the walk the talk, then everyone will admire you and they will follow you, right? Then that is the key for the success of any managers. So the management process, if you go a little bit more details, when you're doing the planning, we are creating the goals and objectives and programs of actions to reach them. So normally what we do is, normally we, it's a good idea is to have some kind of, we call it smart objectives. So smart objective means something which is specific and time bound. So it's good to have some kind of 90 days plan so that we know and evaluate that whether we reach that goal or not, right? Planning should be done first, right? And have an action plan working at least in the 90 days so that you have the time specific goal, time is specific so you can evaluate, right? So it need to start with the higher level management, of course, right? Then what are the factors in effective planning then, right? So for the effective planning, you need to have a lot of data or the information we call it. Or sometimes we also said before, collecting your dots, right? If you can have a collecting your dots means make the information is accessible, then you can make the decision. And to do that, you have to have some kind of good communication skills, right? Which should be in the both ways, two-way communications from higher management to the lower and the lower to the higher. That's very key, right? So most of the time, the problem of communication is it's always thought that the communication has been done, but actually, there's a less communication happening in the between the different level of managements, then it get lost. So it's very important to have certain time fixed, like in the briefing or the meeting or the communications process where both the parties from the higher to lower or the middle managements get constantly communicating about the problems and the situations and the solutions. So to do that, you have to have some kind of flexibility, right? That means you need to have some kind of change in your uh, process in such a way that even if you are out of course, then still you can change the course and go to the right directions, right? So room for errors and change and make a necessary update is very important. Then comes the implementations. That means you have to make sure that somebody is doing it. So require the startups and follow through, which are very important in the planning stage. So then comes organizing, right? So for example, let's say that the organizing the questions and answers is very important. For example, how can we improve or promote and sell our new products without spending any money? Then if this is the situation, how are you going to organize your team then, right? So to do that, to organize the team, then you have to establish the flow of authority and communications among the people. And it is also increasingly common for entry-level employees to be given empowerments to make decision as well, right? So that not everything you are taking every decision on your own, so that even they are given empowerment. That also is important when you are organizing, right? First, to have a, do you want to have a flat system of organization system, or do you want to have a hierarchical? Depends, right? But make sure that each one, the members in your teams, they are empowered. That's also quite important, so that you don't need to be always there, so they can take decision on behalf of you also. Then comes the coordinating. So when you talking about the coordinating with the different departments, teams, members, right? So assigning work and organizing people, resources to achieve the operational objectives is very important. To do that, all comes under communication skills, which is very vital. And you have to do the delegating, the plays or role play, or where the manager can delegate tasks by passing them down others in the organizations, that also possible. Then have the right staff, right? As I said, that staff is mo- one of the biggest resources you have got, right? People's resources. So recruiting and hiring the right applicants is very important, and it is essential that the job descriptions are up to date and accurate to appropriate candidates can be matched with the vacant position, right? So you should have a clear job descriptions and specifications, and the candidates should understand their role and duties, right? That's also a very important part for staffing. So always again, the belly, the fire in the staff, the belly should encourage them to have a right positions, and where you don't need to do the micromanagement of these staff, right? So to do that, you have to have a clear job specifications, list the personal qualities necessary to perform job efficiently. These are also very important part, and make sure that the staff knows very well about their job. So that's another part of the staffing. Then comes directing, right? Which is also important part of the manager's role, which is effectively getting the work done through other people. So employees are criticals to success of every operations, especially in the hospitality business, especially in the restaurant business. These are the key for the success of your company or the business, right? Because if the staffs are happy, right, and they will also give the good services to your customers, and the experience will also itself will be very matured, right? So we also saw the video of the what is talk about the staff being happy and giving the happy services to the uh, customers. So normally in the hospitality we always say is that customer is first, but in actually if you can put the staff in the first, then you'll have a better favorite restaurants or the business F&B business in the entire part of the locations, right? So to do that in directing also includes like schedulings and disciplining the employees. So I keep on insisting discipline is quite important, so that it will have a continuity or the consistency of the uh, employees being motivated every time, and the fire in their belly running, right? So the managers should know how to motivate, inspire, and also the coordinate and give order and bring out the best in the people, right? So we say that the manager is just like a guardians. They are like a parents. Sometimes you are the like a teacher, teaching them, training them, right? Or also the companions, or like a friend also. And at the time, you are the leader also. So there are different roles we are playing as a manager, right? So another comes the controlling. That means the developing and implementing the control system, right? So to do that, you have one of the very important part is budgeting, right? You have certain budgets, operation cost, you have to met certain revenues you have to meet, right? Cost levels need to be controlled. So the system need to indicate the problems on timely basis, right? So that is why important to have supervisors and managers to have some kind of KPI, key performance indicator, be specific with them. And if you have key indicators, then you can do the evaluation at the right time, right? So determining the extent to which plan goals are achieved, right? The managers should constantly ask themselves how well are we doing, or where are we reaching our goals or not, right? So the managers evaluate as they review the progress towards the operational goals. They measure the employee performance, give feedback, which is a very important part of the role of the managers, assess the effectiveness of the training programs, right? And finally, the financial management is very important. As managers, you should have a clear understanding of financials, ratios, metrics, numbers, right? Because it is imperative that the managers know everything about their operations financially, right? Your income statements, your budgets, your cash flow, right? Your your what are the operations cost, right? What is your food cost? What is your labor cost? So the surefire to kill your career is to ignore financials. So the managements, executives, and shareholders, they speak almost exclusively in terms of revenues, money, because that's the key performance indicator which shows that you are giving the result to the shareholders and the owners, right? Which is very important. So that's why we say that you need to prioritize. So if you don't prioritize yourself, you constantly start falling lower and lower on your list. So it's quite important, according to the Michelle Obama, you have to have some kind of prioritize which part you'll be doing first, second, and third, right? So we'll be doing one exercise case study about these coal enterprises to understand whether how these management processes we can apply, how we're going to apply these management skills, right? So this will be I'll be doing in the next class, right? So what we're going to learn in this case study is basically about the problem solving as well as the real life of the managers, how the dilemma can be solved. So the main skills we'll be covering is like a time management, analyzing and solving skills, planning skills, people management, delegating skills, teamwork skills, consensus skills, and when you talk about the communication, what are the verbal, non-verbal, and listening skills, and of course at the end you have to do the presentation skills, which is also quite vital as a manager, right? Thank you for watching this video, and I wish you the best of success. Thank you.